Senator Seery Kearney.
Thank you. And thank you for the engagement. I think it has been very good. I've a couple of, because I appreciate that you sit there and you take a lot of stick from us. So I have two positive things to say. First of all, I want to really congratulate Meta for the creation of Threads. I think it's brilliant, it's safe, it's shown to be a very positive experience, and sadly, as compared to X, which is a vile experience, as I say that as a politician, it is just vile from beginning to end. It's a necessary evil, but anytime I've ever reported anything to you, it never violates your community, so I don't really have any time for X, to be perfectly honest. From the TikTok perspective, your algorithm is doing something very positive at the moment, and I do want to reflect that. My husband has a private TikTok account. He never posts anything. He never would create or otherwise anything. But it's good for us to look up cat videos and all of that kind of funny stuff. And we have a 8 going 9-year-old daughter who likes TikTok because she hears other people talking about it and she's allowed to see it as long as she's sitting beside one or other of us. We will go through it. She did a video because she saw a filter that she liked. So he let her do a video that he supervised, but the algorithm immediately picked up on the fact that she was underage and closed down his account, or he had to go back and verify whatever. So just want to say that I have real-time experience of that happening. It was a fantastic thing to happen in our house because we got to say, see, TikTok don't want you there. So that put an end to that demand, which was really fantastic. So I just want to acknowledge that there are two things that I really do. And I know there's an awful lot with Meta. I know from the minutes of the previous meetings that there's an awful lot of very positive things that go on. I do, however, have a couple of beefs. And one is WhatsApp being reduced in age. I think that's unforgivable. I don't know why you would make such a retrograde step at the moment. I really don't understand that. And I would push all of you again on the fact that, yes, I hear you have a time limit and that you have to put in a code if the time limit is hit. But putting in a code is not flagging the fact that there are mental health. And I mean, if you look at, even from a daytime with friends by age group, since social media, and I appreciate it's also smartphones, full stop, but since social media, the number of minutes of engagement that children have with real live other children has diminished to a frightening extent. You go into any coffee shop, anything, you have people sitting with their children and they're on a phone, their child is on a phone. You have this lack of human engagement that is just frightening. And I do believe that is a major contributor to issues with mental health, with anxiety, with all of this. And I think that we do need that the message comes up in an hour. Yeah, okay, I would need to be convinced that an hour is enough. But that at that point it comes up and says, you need to go and talk to a human being. You need to, we have warnings on the side of cigarette packets. We have all sorts of warnings that come back. The fact is that the mental health of young people is being affected by the length of time and the addictive nature of social media. And I suppose I want to push that of what can you do to address that mental health element. When you have a business model that actually runs contrary to that, with all of the safeguards that are being talked about, you have a business model that runs contrary to keeping them there rather than, ensuring. Because by the time then they become an adult, they're actually already well addicted and we've changed how we ring doorbells after COVID because we do it we changed how we do lift buttons. We change how our behavior is, apparently. They're all thumbs, we're not. I'm still all my fingers typing. But all of those things have changed, that behavior. But that's only symptomatic of what is going on cognitively. And that there is a need for there to be very clear mental health flags that go on here.
Okay, so I'll have to ask people to be really brief because we have 5 minutes left. Yeah.
Sure. I'm happy to come in.
Yeah.
I think I agree that the changing habits in society is quite stark when you look back. When I was young, I was always being told off for watching too much television, not interacting, sitting in my room watching TV. I think now the move is obviously, the shift we've seen is to online. I go back to the previous point I made about, I think time is an important factor, but it's also about the quality. So I think, when we go out and speak to young people, a lot of them see that they are interacting when they're online. They don't see that they're not. That's how they're often communicating with their friends and the people they know. And there's so many positive skills that can be developed for younger users that will hopefully see them well in life, like digital skills, creating content, using filters, using these complex things that I struggle to do myself.
And I don't deny that.
Yeah.
But we see from social media that a person can go on to X. I put up a post, I mute everything, I never see what's on there because it's just so appalling. But people can, through a screen, say and be who they are, but their in-person behaviour could be very different. So we see teenagers with heightened levels of anxiety. We see that throughout our schools, that we've had to bring in mental health, and that's not COVID. I appreciate a little bit of it as COVID, but actually a lot of it has got to do with the fact that they are communicating through devices as opposed to actually those cues of eye engagement. All of those cues are being lost.
Definitely, and I think that's where the balance is important, and that's why we have the screen time limit, and I think it's why we have the family pairing tools that allow parents to decide, because obviously each teenager is different. And so an hour might be too much for one, not enough for another. It also depends, like I said, if they're on the STEM feed and they're learning about science and maths, you might be more inclined to let them be on there than if they're looking at cat videos or what have you. But I think it's also that there's a sense of community that can be found online, and we know, surveys have shown that young people of colour, LGBTQ+ individuals have found a great sense of community and belonging and authenticity from the communities they find on TikTok. It's a really huge part of TikTok. I'm in a same-sex couple. We've just had a child. I look at TikTok and I see loads of great, inspiring content about same-sex parenting, for example, something I'd never seen online before, and it's really helped me in my own personal circumstance. So I think there's the positives, but there's the balance. But that's why we invest in those family pairing tools to help families decide for themselves what's best for their teenager.
No, last word to you, David.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and screen time is something that's emerged pretty quickly in the last year or two. I mean, pre-COVID, it was video games, violence content, and there's sort of been a shift. And you might be right. I think there might be a COVID effect. But what is interesting is that the French government, for example, has established a screen time committee to look at this. And the work of people like Professor Szubilski, for example, at the Oxford Internet Institute, who's done some really interesting studies on what is the optimum amount of screen time. So there is quite a lot of work going on in the academic environment that says, okay, if we've got this problem, how do we quantify it? What is good screen use? What are the outcomes? Happy to share the links for this committee because I think they're really interesting.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
And I think the committee that President Macron formulated, which we're part of, is discussing that right now to say, okay, is there an optimum here? Could we get proper clinical guidance on this and think about it in a mature way, recognizing that there is this concern, and therefore can platforms bring in tools which reflect that guidance? I'm optimistic that we can probably move in that direction, given that I think it is a significant recent concern.
Brilliant. And I also note that the French government require children under 15 to that their parents must consent to their thing, which I think we should bring in here. Yeah, but thank you.
Is there
WhatsApp? We haven't had an answer on WhatsApp.
And also
Justify
if
that.
X want to, any final comments or anything?
Thank you. I don't think that you had any specific point for us, but I think maybe as a general comment on the question of how we deal with GDPR consent and age verification, we would of course apply GDPR consent to country where it is in place. So indeed in France it's 15 years old, so we would respect that in this country. So ask first for personal consent before people can use social media. We're also part of the special committee on screen time. Actually, we testified in front of this committee on what indeed is the appropriate screen time for people to be using. On the issue of age verification, I think as such we are not opposed actually to age verification on the platform. It's more that we are a bit in a situation where we don't really have a technical solution in place. And we saw in countries like the UK or France or even the US, where this conversation was a bit more advanced, actually, for instance, in France, it was for the CNIL, so the Data Protection Authority, and ARCOM, so the audiovisual regulator, to come up with guidance on system for social media platform to be using. And there was a lot of discussion around the system of double anonymity. So at the time, we were thinking that, okay, maybe this system of double anonymity can work. But actually, at the moment, we are still waiting to see, you know, what will be the recommendation, and they have still not been published. And we feel that the discussion has been taken at EU level with the age-appropriate design core that I think we are all part of it. So I think, you know, we need to continue having this broader discussion with all the value chain involved, because it's, of course, social media, but also the App Store, the search engine, you know, and the wider community, to try to see, you know, what solution would be able to bridge both the concern with data privacy and yeah, data privacy and protection, and, you know, the issue of, you know, making sure that indeed, you know, we know, you know, who the users are and what are their age. And I think when we come to this point and we reach this momentum, yeah, we will still be able, you know, to use a system that has been vetted, I think, by the data protection regulator as well.
Just very briefly, no, we're out of time. Thank you for the kind words on threads. It's great to hear. In relation to the WhatsApp, I can follow up with more detail, but essentially, globally, it's designed for a 13+ system. So the European region was an outlier. It's bringing it into line with that. The change was notified. It was in February. It was, you know, discussed with the relevant regulatory bodies, and we believe it is bringing it in line with the expectations of users of the service. So, but we appreciate that, like, we recognise the concerns have been expressed, and we take those concerns very seriously.
Thanks very much. Thank you to our